Welcome to Top 5, a show where we count things down from number 5 all the way to number 1. And this week on the show, if you've got a mobile device in your pocket, chances are you've got a lot of apps on it. And this week, we're looking at our top 5 apps right here on Top 5. Matthew, what do you have for your number 5 app?
My number 5 app is actually one that recently jumped into the list, replacing another one, which shall remain nameless, but people were trying to convince me is now the 24th letter of the alphabet and is owned by a fascist. So my number 5 is what Stephen and only Stephen refers to as the Blue Ski. The Blue Sky.
Everybody else does
social media.
The same thing.
No, nobody else does it.
Yeah, they do.
It's only you. No,
I call it the Busky.
Oh, the Busky.
The Busky. Yeah.
The Busky.
Yeah. You are the only person I've ever heard call it the Blue Ski, and that's fine. I mean, I have a lot of jokes that I beat to death as well, but I recently discovered the functionality to do everything that I used to do on the app, which shall remain nameless because it was given a completely meaningless name. And so, I'm kind of pulling up stakes and doing my thing. So, but the best part about it is it's also the only way that I communicate with certain friends. There are a bunch of people that, who are major spoilers related, or people who follow us, are spoilerites, and friends and people that I had met on various social media that I only ever see there. So there are times where I'm just like, I wonder what J. Michael T is up to. I wonder, hey, where's Vistapa these days? And I go there, and I don't know if J. Michael T is on yet, but there are a bunch of people from the old days of the site which shall not be named. And I'm kind of enjoying it, and I'm kind of using it as maybe a primary social media outlet right now. And that's kind of nice, It's good to have something new that isn't entirely new. I feel like I'm just learning a manual transmission in a new car.
Very cool. Rodrigo, what about you? What do you have on your number 5?
I was going to say enjoy it because they're going to roll out some sort of monetization thing pretty soon. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. My number 5 app is something pretty simple. I have it on the first page of my phone when you turn it on because I don't want to go searching around for it because when I need it, I absolutely need it. And that is, of course, the calculator.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't mess with math nowadays. Like, I can do math in my head, but especially when it comes to things like calculating my time on, like, my timesheet or whatever, right? It's like time, so it has to go in like increments of like 60, not like point, 0.5, 0.1, yeah. So it really, really helps to just be like, okay, let me just add up all the minutes of all of these ones over here, and then divide that by 60, and then, okay, this is how many additional hours to like the hours column I've worked. I worked pretty much the same amount of time every week, so I don't know why I have to keep doing that. I could just write the same time. But, I always have this like thing in the back of my head is like, well, what if something doesn't add up? What if there was a mistake somewhere in the timesheet? So at least once every 2 weeks, I'm on the calculator trying to sort all that out.
Yep, been there, done that. Very good. My number 5 is the fitness app from Apple. I use this quite a bit, actually. I monitor it for step count and miles walked, all that stuff. But I think the thing that makes the fitness app work, and I know that there's a lot of other apps that do this, is the gamification of exercise. And so with the fitness app, it gives you daily, weekly, and monthly goals for you to hit, like how many times you need to stand up in a day, how many exercise minutes you should be hitting a day, how many move minutes you should be hitting a day, or how many calories you burn from your moves. And then it has things like, hey, this month, you need to walk, 67 miles in order to win a badge. And so then you get monthly badges and these kinds of things. And then you can do things like longest streaks, perfect weeks, all these other things. It makes exercise a little bit more fun, and you can add friends to it, and you can do competitions. My wife and I sometimes do competitions with each other. So yeah, it's kind of fun. I kind of wish that Apple would allow you to print, like if you get like one of the biggest awards that you can get. Let me see if I can find it really quick. One of the biggest awards that you can get is is it the 10,000 move goal, where you have where you walk like 10,000 days or something like that in a total. It would be nice. It would be nice if they would let you get a little metal pin, an actual physical pin, when you hit those major goals. So that's my only complaint about it. But otherwise, I think the fitness app is really kind of cool. And that's why it is my number 5. All right. We are in our number 4s. Matthew, what do you have for number 4?
You know, when you talk about your fitness app, I almost had my calorie app, which I call it my Fatness Pal.
Yeah, my Fitness Pal is what it is. I've got that one too. I just don't use it as much.
Oh, yeah. Well, I use it because, otherwise Jill yells at me. But it didn't make the cut for a couple of reasons. One, calories aren't any fun. And two, I might have since November the 6th been in a state of, well, I'll eat whatever I want and I'm going to deal with the fallout in 2025. And if anybody has a problem with that, well, they know where I live. So instead of counting my calories, I have used the number 4, the most important number 4 app on my phone. Last summer, in between their first and second year of college, the kid came home. And the kid was like, I have this job working at a place that is a franchise. So they were working at a Starbucks in a grocery store. So it wasn't an actual Starbucks store. But they said, hey, I'm only working half time. So they went to the actual Starbucks, got a job at the Starbucks, which means that you get the Starbucks app, which has your Starbucks employee discount. And even though they're no longer employee and I no longer have the discount, they do have a lot of ways to save. And I try really hard to only get Floofy coffee 3 times a week. And I only fail in that about 4 times out of 5. But here's the deal. If I, like right now, I'm in the middle of a streak. If I go 4 more days of ordering coffee every day, then I get a bunch of points that I can then use to get free coffee. So in the long term, I'm saving money. But it also does one thing that is wonderful. My wife's order is super, super complicated. It is literally a fat-free, skinny vanilla latte with a tiny bit of cinnamon and then some syrup, some caramel syrup. And it's a huge pain in the patukas. But if you save it on the app, and then you're like, oh, we're going to go. We go there. We go click, click, click. We push the button. It goes to my PayPal. My PayPal gives it money. We drive there. By the time we reach the Starbucks, that Starbucks app has paid for itself because we don't have to try and explain what a non-fat, skinny blonde actually is. And so that right there makes it worth the price of admission, even though we no longer have an employee discount. So my number 4 is that Starbucks app, which allows me to have complicated and expensive coffee. And according to every boomer I've ever met, the only thing I'm really sacrificing is the ability to pay for my mortgage.
Rodrigo, what do you have for your number 4?
My number 4 is an app I use for work, and it's pretty useful. We used to, technically, we still do. So I work as a caregiver for adults with mental disabilities. So I go to their house and I hang out at their house and I help them with whatever they need. Different clients have different needs. So what we used to have, or what we technically still have, is a book. And so in the book, you would write, what went on, what needs to happen, what still needs to be done, or whatever. And then one day somebody showed up, started working there, and they're like, we should just do all of this through WhatsApp. and the company started using WhatsApp, and we've never looked back.
Yeah.
WhatsApp is nice for a lot of reasons. Mostly that it's a messaging app that is separate from my text messages, so I can change the permissions and dings and beeps from WhatsApp. So I always know when work is calling. Unlike a lot of people who I think perfectly reasonably don't want to be bothered by work outside of work, because I work caring for people, and sometimes those people can be difficult to understand or difficult to deal with, or they want something but they can't fully express it. It's nice to have that because somebody, relatively new people or people who haven't worked with that client as much will be like, hey, this client is doing this and they seem kind of distressed. Does anybody know what this is? And it's nice to have like the team, just whatever you're doing, even if you're out and about, be like, oh, hey, try this. Or they did that. I think what they want is this, or something like that, right? It's also nice because it's in your phone, but also it backs up to the cloud. And pretty much any message you get, you can back up yourself. So that's another good reason to always use it for work, because sometimes you gotta talk to the boss about your timesheet and about how much money there is or isn't there, and it's nice to have like a communication that I can save that they can't delete. Just, I'm not saying there's any problems like that. It's just nice to have that in my back pocket. So my number 4 is WhatsApp.
Very cool. I do a lot of astrophotography, and one of the big things that I'm always concerned about is, are we going to have clear skies? Is it going to be cloudy? Is the fog going to roll in? Is it going to rain? Is it going to be too windy? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I found this really great app called Clear Sky, and Clear Sky breaks it down. It's a weather app, and it uses weather data that you can find in other weather applications, but it breaks it down by here's the date, here's what time the sun sets, here's what time the moonset is. It tells you throughout the day what the conditions are for going outside and setting up your telescope. So, for example, right now, it is telling me that cloud cover is 37%. The medium cloud cover, the medium high clouds is the one that's causing all the problems. There is no fog or rain. It is windy, though, from the north at 13 miles per hour, and it's going to frost tonight. It's got a bunch of other information in there. And so I can just very quickly open this up, and I can just look at the color-coded bars at the top, and I can say, oh, is Wednesday night going to be any better? And the only time that we're going to have relatively clear skies on Wednesday is at 10 o'clock p.m. for 1 hour, where the clouds were part at for 1 hour, and then go back to mostly cloudy skies. And you may be thinking, oh, this can't be that accurate. This thing is surprisingly accurate to where if it says that, hey, cloud cover should clear up around 1 o'clock and be clear until about 4 o'clock, sure enough, I'll be looking, it's like, it's cloudy, or it's raining, or it's foggy. There's no way any of this will clear up. And then sure enough, right at the time that this app says it's going to clear up, it clears up. So the bad thing is, for the rest of this week, there are no clear skies, no clear nights to go and do any astrophotography. But it is a great app to have to kind of plan things out if that is what you are into. So also, if you're just looking to say, hey, I'm going to be outside on a jog or something at 5 o'clock this afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever it may be, what's the weather going to be? And it'll tell you that as well. So it's a great all around. It's not going to give you radar information, but it's a great overall like tablet table to look at what the current weather and future weather conditions are for like the next week. So there you go. It's called Clear Sky, or I'm sorry, Clear Outside, and it's put out by a company called First Light Optics, which is a company that sells astronomy equipment. So there you go on that. So I'm a big fan of Clear Outside. We are now into our number 3s. Matthew, what do you have for your number 3 app?
Man, I'm still just terrified of the fact that you said running at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's just like, ugh. Anyway, My number 3 app is nearer and dearer to my heart than most, because
it's your pacemaker app. You said it was near and dear to your heart.
This one is one that has kept me sane for several years. And it is literally just called Photo Editor. But the thing about Photo Editor is that it is compact. It is designed for the screen of my smartphone. I have a pretty big smartphone. My smartphone is probably a little bit longer than a dollar bill and about 3.5, 4 inches across. So it's a great big screen. And what I've used it for is just image editing. So if I'm like, hey, I want to do a list of 10 things and I want a picture of Crime Buster from Hillman Comics from 1942, literally, I can find an image, a cover, whatever it is. I can download it. I can throw it into Image Editor. I can mess with it and I can make it into something just on my phone with my fingers that I can use. And if you're bored, and sometimes you are, yesterday at work, I got really bored. One of my coworkers had a picture, a background in the Teams app of her parrot wearing a Santa hat. So I took a picture of her parrot and I put it in my photo editor and I added a goatee and I reversed the picture and turned the red Santa hat green. I did this all in photo editor. I turned that into my Teams background. And somebody asked me about it, and I said, oh, this is the evil mirror universe version of Mariah's parrot. That amused me so much. And that was literally just 10 minutes messing around on my lunch break on my phone. But I put it in, and it entertained me for the rest of the afternoon, which right there should tell you all you need to know. It's absolutely useless for anything monetary or cool, or like Rodrigo's apps, or hey, my job is cool. And Steven's like, I'm going to expand the universe and I'm going to do my health. And mine is like, tee evil parrot. So my number 3, Photo Editor, is just a great app for keeping me from going absolutely bonkers while people yell at me on the phone.
Very cool. All right, Rodrigo, what do you have for your number 3?
My number 3 is an app that I think a lot of people use. And recently there's been some controversy because I think Google, the company that runs it, is going to start just be like, hey, if you use this, we're gonna train AI on your stuff. And that's not great. But Google Drive, it has become, and it's kids, right? So I'm lumping all together Drive and Sheets and Docs. Is something that I use all the time. I write a lot. Most of it doesn't come to anything. It's just I had lots of chunks of unfinished projects or whatever, but sometimes I go back and I take stuff from unfinished projects and I put it into a new project, and then maybe that project gets finished. So I'm always doing something on there, and it is great to have something that is free that I can access at my computer and my tablet and anywhere else that I need to do it on my phone if I need to. And has access to all the stuff that I'm at least currently writing, plus anything else for my YouTube channel. Sometimes I use video from my phone instead of my webcam, and it's the easiest thing is just to upload it to Google Drive and then download it on my computer for editing, right? And that just saves so much time. It means that I can do that, and it's not a big hassle I don't even have to plug my phone into my computer and then have them talk to each other. I can just do it through Google, and everything's fine. So yeah, an app that I surprisingly use constantly for creative stuff is Google Drive.
Oh, very
we
nice.
Actually use that for the family grocery list, and
sure,
recently for the Christmas list.
Yeah, you share stuff all the time. We use Google Drive at Major Spoilers all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, my number 3. I do astrophotography, and I have since the beginning kind of gotten into the particular company's ecosphere. It's the company is called ZWO or ZWO if you are from outside of the United States. But I've gotten a lot of their products, and the reason why I use a lot of their products, whether it be the Sky Guider or the camera or the filter wheel or the autofocuser or whatever, one of the nice things is they have a very simple application that you can use to control everything. You've got a little device. It's a Raspberry Pi, essentially, with some PhD, some pretty dumb guiding software on it with some other things. And it works great. And all I have to do is plug the Raspberry Pi onto the telescope and connect everything up, and it controls the power and the dew heater and all those kinds of things. And then all I have to do is open the ASI Air app on my mobile device, whether it be a phone or an iPad or even on my computer. I can use it, not as easily, but then I can go in and I can program. I can open up the planetarium and I can go to the areas of interest, or I can look up areas of interest, move and control the telescope and move the mount and everything, slew it over to those locations. And then I can go in and say, okay, we're going to shoot the Horsehead Nebula tonight for the next 6 hours. I want you to take 60 or 70 5-minute exposures using this filter and this filter wheel. And when you're done, go back to the home position and shoot a bunch of dark frames and a bunch of other frames that I need to process these images, and it does everything automatically. It is a lot of people have a problem with ASI Air, but over the last 4 or 5 years, people have started to come around to say, okay, maybe ASI or ZWO isn't the evil company that it is, even though they are getting you locked into their ecosystem when there are cheaper solutions out there. But what I like about it is it's simple and it's easy to use. And if anybody, a couple of years ago, I was live streaming. We do a stargazing party on the Major Spoilers Twitch channel. Some of you were part of that, and so you got to see that ASI Air application in the works live, and we got to see a lot of cool things out there in space. So ASI Air is the app that I use to control all of my astronomy gear. So that's my number 3.
Nice.
We have made it all the way to our number 2s in our top 5 apps this week. Matthew, what do you have for your number 2?
So when I say the first thing that I say, you're going to think one thing, but then I'm going to say something that makes you think something different. That actually should be boilerplate pretty much in anything I say on any of our shows, but top 5 especially. But my number 2 app is incredibly important to me because it is the primary way that I communicate with my wife. And that app is called Wordsy. Wordsy is basically a Scrabble game. And the Scrabble game has 5 sets of tiles, a 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 letter word. You get random letters, you spell words. So during the day, when I'm locked in my home office taking calls, and she's locked in a different home office taking different calls, and we can't, talk to each other. Texting is rather limited, but we might have a few seconds of, just a little bit of attention to where we can pop a 3-letter word into the thing. Then we can do that. We have that, that back and forth. Occasionally you can do a little message and just go, hey, good word, or hey, what's for dinner, or hey, that word was really funny. It made me think of you and I totally love you, tee-hee. And occasionally, we'll put in a lewd word and we'll both go tee-hee because why not? It's fun to be 12. But the thing about Wordsy that is so annoyingly addictive is that it has a million little side games. There's a game where you match tiles. There's a game where you dig treasure. There's a game where you collect little pieces and you put them together and you get little random tiles. So your Scrabble tile doesn't have to be a tile. Right now, mine is a piece of chocolate birthday cake. Previous to that, it had been a cheeseburger. Previous to that, it had been a squid. So you can do these silly little goofy things and entertain yourself and also keep a 30-year marriage alive. So in that only, I think, if that is the only thing that Wordsy did for me, other than prove to me that there is, in fact, a legal word called Zax, Z-A-X or Z-A-X, for those of you who are outside the United States. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it means. I think it has something to do with Dr. Seuss. Anyway, long story short, too late. Wordsy is my number 2 app, and it's one of the most wonderful things I've discovered in recent years.
Very cool. Rodrigo, what about you? What do you have for your number 2 app?
My number 2 app. Oh, by the way, Zax is just short for Zaxophone. All of my apps, like I sat down to think about what apps I use all the time and what apps I couldn't live without, and they're all like pretty boring. It's like the app I write with, the app I talk to work with, and the app that prevents me from not getting paid as much as I've worked. And I'm just going to continue that streak with LastPass. LastPass is my password manager.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a few other features. It's got some it's got that thing where it like tests your password and tells you if it's strong or not. It suggests passwords, which most apps like it will do. There's nothing specific to LastPass that necessarily makes it above and beyond other password managers, other than it had a particularly long period of time before it started charging me. So
right.
I appreciated that at the time. Nowadays, of course, now that all of the keys to my kingdom are tied to that key ring, I'm very reluctant to go looking for other stuff. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of complaints about it. Of course, the only complaint is what happens when I forget my LastPass password, which is the only password that LastPass doesn't help me with. But
you need
thankfully,
another to remember the password for that.
Yeah, I need a whole other password keeper app to remind me of that. So far, knock on wood, that hasn't happened. In that, like, it kind of has, but then, like, seriously, just like sat down and like meditated and try to go into my own brain and be like, what did I what did I use for this? And then be like, try to figure out what oblique combination of numbers and special characters and capital letters I actually use to spell out something ridiculous as my password. So my number 2, LastPass, I use it all the time. It's an app I use constantly because I need to do online banking and get into Google Drive and, do all kinds of stuff. So
I just write all mine down on a sticky note and stick it on my computer.
Yeah.
That is not proper password management.
So the thing about that is that it's okay if you mostly just interact with that stuff on your desktop.
Yeah.
But I use like at work, I use my tablet because there's like there's a long periods of downtime at my work where I can be like, for example, writing something on Google Docs, and it's like, well, if for some reason it got it forgot who I am, I can just pull up LastPass and do it there. And this way I don't have to lug my monitor covered in sticky notes everywhere I go.
Yeah, see? Yeah. There you go. All right, my number 2, like your, I think it was your number 4, Rodrigo, your Google Docs app. I have one that I use on my iPads all the time. It is invaluable. I'm happy to pay the $20 a year or whatever it is that they charge me for it. It's called Notability. And Notability is an app really, I think, designed for college students so that they can be better note takers in classes and everything, because it's got like a diction feature and it's got like stickers and things that you can put in and all these other things. But what I like about it is it literally is one place where I can store all of my notes, and I can bring up lined paper. I can bring up a blank sheet, whatever I need to do. And I can just use my Apple Pen and write notes, write thoughts. In fact, all of the critical hit campaign that we're currently doing, all the notes are in Notability. I can copy and paste from other applications. So if I need to copy a weapon, I can copy and paste it right into the Notability document, and it's super great. It can do some limited handwriting to type conversion, but for the most part, it is a great note taker, and I use it all the time. I know other people will say, oh, you should use Evernote, or oh, you should use these other things. I've tried those other things before, but none of them work as well as Notability has for me. And I find it great, and I find it invaluable. I've used it as a whiteboard in class where I will just simply plug the iPad into the presentation system, and I'll just bring up Notability, which has a presentation mode to where I can just write on the screen, just like I would be writing up on the whiteboard. So it's great. I like Notability a lot, and it is my number 2. We have made it all the way to our number 1s this week on our top 5 apps episode, and I'm very curious what everyone has for their number 1s. Let's find out from Matthew what he has as his number 1 app.
I'm kind of ashamed to be this boring, but I started thinking about what app I use the most. And then I started thinking about the apps that are on the list before this one and how, like Rodrigo's password app, they all tie into that. So when I go and I order my floofy coffee, I use this app to pay for it. When I go and I'm like, ooh, hey, I need to do this thing over here, or I want to cheat and buy an extra turn in the Wordsy, or I want to do something cool and I want to go, I use PayPal for literally all of my money management. And some people would say that's bad. But here's the thing that you need to know about PayPal. PayPal doesn't actually know my bank. PayPal knows the account that I use to feed PayPal, which then feeds to an account with my bank. So I can literally go and I can say, if I'm getting Christmas, I'm going to get a whole bunch of Christmas. So I go online, I do the thing, I click, and it says PayPal, hey, you want to pay in 4? I'm like, sure, I want to pay in 4. So I pay a quarter down, and then the rest comes in the next 4 paychecks. It is invaluable for me because A, I'm bad with money, and B, it doesn't necessarily expose all of my credit card information like it used to in the old days. I recently actually had my credit card pop up and people were trying to use it, and the bank was like, nope, we're going to kill it. But then I didn't have my credit card for like 3 weeks, and I couldn't pay anybody except for the people that I could pay with PayPal. So I can, do the groceries. I can order my coffee. I can do my floofy stuff. As Will Ferrell tells me, I can pay some kid. I'm not going to do that. But it's really eerily useful. Now, there are major, problems with it. But honestly, there are major problems with everything in the universe. And right now, I feel like rather than moral purity, I just want to be able to order a Perkins pie in the middle of the night and not have to give my credit card information to some kid and have him be like, "Ha! Now I have stolen your identity." Because I've long believed that my identity, if you steal it, you probably deserve it. But in recent years, I've kind of cleaned up my act. I don't know if you guys do this. I actually bought a new vehicle from like a dealer.
Wow.
And I know.
It's one of those. Hold on, Rodrigo. When he says a dealer, it's like, hey, I got this car over here. It just fell off a truck. Brand new, made in the year 1999. I'll give it to you as cheap, $500.
No, it's like a brand new Nissan from the Nissan guy who's like, hey, we're going to run your credit. We're going to treat you like an adult until we see your credit. And then we're going to be like, oh, well, let me call the other credit company. But it was one of those things where in the last few years, for a while, we weren't leaving the house. So we were having, food delivered. Hopefully not as much as we did in 2020. But if you're like, hey, I don't want to go anywhere, but I'm really hungry. We need pizza. People are going to die. Or the other day, I was just like, I broke a nail. And you may say, oh, haha, he broke a nail. My thumbnails split, and they split halfway down. So I literally went online, took my PayPal, doopy doopy doop, had some kid run to the CVS while we were recording a previous episode of either this show or the MSP. Kid went, did my shopping, brought me some nail strengthener. I literally put the nail strengthener on, protected my nails so that I didn't have to go out. And all of that was made possible by the fact that, some evil guy made an app that is now somehow the gold standard for gold and the standards. So that's kind of neat. It's almost like being an adult, except I don't have to, be an adult.
Okay. Rodrigo, what do you have for your number one?
My number one has become really necessary for me. As you may or may not know, I suffer from frequent and often debilitating migraines. So I have an app to track them. And the main use of it is for me to track when I've taken medicine for it, because you can't, most migraine medicines, you can't take a lot of them, or you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can take more. So it's good for the really bad times when a migraine doesn't go away at all, and I can be like, okay, what is the minimum amount of time that I can wait before taking something else, or the same thing. But also it tracks triggers, right? So if I tell it, I'm like, well, I ate something really salty, or I ate some processed food, and I didn't get enough sleep, and also I was exposed to some bright lights, and also I stared at a screen for 20 out of 24 hours. I had this coming. So that's useful too. It has a way of sort of sorting through that stuff and being like, hey, despite all that stuff, the app, which is called Migraine Buddy, because I just realized I hadn't said its name yet. I think it's actually the main triggers, I think, are these. Even though this other stuff happens too, I think your main triggers are these. It has a community too, so basically a forums that's attached to it, so people post on there. It's kind of, at least the last time I went in there, it sparse. I think I don't think I think a lot more people use the app in general than go into the community. I mean, I usually don't go into the community unless I have a specific question, or I feel like I've made some sort of migraine discovery. There is a paid version of it which tracks things like humidity and air pressure. But I've talked to my neurologist, and she doesn't think that that's a thing. It has things where all of a sudden the weather changes very fast and it starts raining, and people are like, oh, do you think you're gonna get a migraine? I'm like, no, usually the weather really doesn't affect them. So it's nice. It's nice to have. It's very helpful. It also has forced some reckonings, because putting in. So I've had this for a long time. Putting in, it's I had a migraine on this day, and I had a migraine on this day, and I had a migraine on this day, or as they happen. Eventually, after every month or couple months, maybe it's like, hey, do you want to see your migraines charted? And I'm like, yeah, okay. I open it up, and it's like, hey, here's all the migraines you've had. You have a severe disability. And I'm like,
yeah,
what? So yeah, this app told me I was disabled, and it was hard to hear, and it's taken me a while to be like, yeah, I guess I am. That, and actually Matthew's wife posting about chronic pain on Facebook. I was like, well, here's how I deal with chronic pain. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a chronic pain sufferer. Right. So It's fine. It's cool. I have a neurologist. I have a medical team. It's all good. But yeah, leave it to Migraine Buddy, an app that I was like, well, I don't want to take too much Tylenol at once. To really kind of crack this thing open and be like, hey, you need to literally re-examine your life because you're giving yourself too many migraines and things are bad.
Now, did you find that you get a lot of migraines on the Monday that your time off at work arrives? Because I find that was a problem back in the day. People were just like, hey.
So, I see what you're saying.
I'm teasing my wife.
I see what you're saying.
She will.
Here's the thing.
Oh, I have 5 hours. I think I'm going to take them, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not your manager.
Here's the thing. Migraines are kind of cyclical. Like,
true.
If I get a migraine at one time a day, chances are my next migraine is going to be very close to that time of day. So I have gotten into times when I get a migraine like on a Tuesday afternoon and I can't make the show. And then like the next week I'll get a migraine like if it's like slightly earlier, then maybe I can like take something and do the show later. Or it might like impede me again. So like I do get into things where like the cycle actually seems very suspicious.
Always.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I see. How come you only get migraines on Tuesdays? Like, joke's on you. I get migraines every day. It's just sometimes the Tuesday ones are bad.
And, in your defense, I've missed like 9 shows in 15 years, and he's still like, again? You were just gone in 2022.
No way.
No, he's not like that. He's actually really nice about it. But, it's fun to make fun of him because you can.
Okay, we're up to my number 1. The app that I use almost every day because it's the one that allows me to be occupied while I'm doing exercise. It also allows me to listen to any number of books that are out there. It's actually, I don't use the Audible app on my cell phone because I don't take my phone with me when I walk. Because it's always flopping around in my pocket and I don't want to lose it or I don't like it hitting against me. And so what I do is I have Audible installed on my Apple Watch, and my Apple Watch is connected to my my Shox Bluetooth headphones, and all the books are automatically synced from the phone to the watch. So when I go out in the morning, I start the walking app, and then I start Audible, and I just listen to all sorts of great books. For example, in January for the Major Spoilers Book Club, which you can access for free over at patreon.com/Major Spoilers, we will be talking about The Peripheral by William Gibson. So I am currently listening to The Peripheral on my walks, and it's great, and I love it. And depending on how long the book is, I can generally get through a book in about 3 days, and so that's great. I think the book that killed me was Oil. It was a super long book. It took me 2 weeks to get through it, and it was a slog, and I hated every minute of it. But yeah, the Audible app I use all the time. The biggest problem that I have with it, and it has gotten better, is there was a time where it was just like constantly not syncing with the phone or anything else, and so I was constantly having to uninstall it and reinstall it. But probably the last 2 years, I have had, and I say this now, and then it will happen, I've had 0 problems with the Audible app on my Apple Watch. It has worked flawlessly, and it's great. So, I don't care. So I'm going to get hit by a car someday, and well, I've already been hit by a car from when I was walking, but I'm going to get hit by a car someday, and no one's going to know who I am because the only thing I'm going to have on me is my Apple Watch and a pair of headphones, which will probably have flown off into the bushes. I don't carry.
All we know about this man is that he loved the book.
Yeah, that he's fat. Yeah. I don't carry ID with me, and I don't have a phone with me. So yeah, it's certainly the Apple Watch has some security things like, oh, we've detected you fallen quite hard. Should we call 911? 888-321-911. So that's helpful. But yeah, Audible. The Audible app is great for people that have Audible accounts. I know some people are anti-audiobook. I know some people are anti-Amazon, and they would prefer to use other apps. But for me, not always for you, the Audible app is great. And I get free books each month as part of my subscription. So there you go. And there you go, dear listener. Our top 5 apps that we use all the time. If you have an app that you love, that you can't live without, then head over to our Discord server. You can join the Major Spoilers Discord server for free. And then you can get into the top 5 channel and you can share your top 5 apps, whether that be a gaming app or an exercise app or a health app or whatever it may be. You can share it there. Why? Because everybody loves a list.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment.